Somewhere in 17th century Japan, long before dawn, a young warrior lies on a straw mat. Outside, it is winter, dark and silent except for the wind. Inside, there is warmth, stillness, and the temptation to stay there a little longer. In a few seconds, the bell will sound. And in those few seconds, while the bell is still silent, the outcome of the day is already being decided. Not on the battlefield, not in a duel with an opponent. Here, on the mat, in the choice between warmth and the cold floor. This warrior knows something most people never realize. He knows that the hardest enemy to defeat is not the one standing in front of him with a sword. It is the one whispering from within. A little longer, just a little more. Today you can let it slide. That inner voice is not an enemy only in a metaphorical sense. It literally exists. It has a neurobiological explanation, a philosophical description, and, most important of all, a concrete method of defeating it. Not once, every day, until victory no longer requires effort, because it has become your nature. Today, we are going to talk about the morning. But not in the usual way people talk about it, through lists of productive habits and stories about successful people. We are going deeper, to the root itself. To why morning is not just the beginning of the day, but, if you understand it correctly, a daily act of self-creation. Let us begin with a question thinkers from different ages and traditions all ask themselves. A question to which they gave different answers. But all of those answers pointed in the same direction. What is laziness? Not in the everyday sense, I was lazy today. In the philosophical sense. What kind of state is this? Where does it come from? And why is it so persistent? The ancient Greek philosophers distinguished between two ideas that we mix together today. Argia, literal idleness, the absence of action. And acedia, a special state of spiritual listlessness in which a person does not simply fail to do something, but has lost contact with why it should be done at all. Not the body's fatigue, but the soul's indifference. In the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle described acedia as one of the most destructive states available to a human being. Not because it is painful, but because it is comfortable. A person in acedia does not suffer. They simply exist. They drift with the current, react to circumstances, postpone intentions. And it is exactly this comfort that makes acedia dangerous. It does not cry out, does not demand attention, does not look like a problem. More than 1,000 years after Aristotle, medieval Christian monks included acedia in the list of major sins, but not as a moral defect, rather as a spiritual condition that required active resistance. In the 5th century AD, the monk John Cassian wrote about acedia with clinical precision. It is a state in which the sun seems to move too slowly. The day feels endless, and every task appears meaningless, and every undertaking doomed. Do you recognize that description? This is not the pathology of some rare monk. It is the morning of most people, to one degree or another. In the Japanese tradition of martial arts, there was a concept that described a similar state from another angle. Furyudo, literally, the way without flow, a condition in which the warrior has lost contact with intention. The body is there, the sword is there, the knowledge is there, but the inner fire that puts all of it in motion is gone. The masters understood something crucial. Furyudo cannot be defeated by rest. It cannot be waited out. It can only be defeated by action. Specifically, by action that comes before the desire to act. Not, first I'll want to, then I'll do it, but I'll do it, and the desire will come. This is critically important, and it is exactly what modern psychology confirms through the concept of behavioral activation. Motivation does not come before action. It follows it. You do not wait until you feel like training. You start training, and the desire comes during the process. You do not wait until you feel like working. You begin working, and engagement appears a few minutes after the start. Masters of Japanese martial arts knew this centuries before the first psychological study. That is why the system of Shugyo, intentional morning practice, was built not on motivation, but on structure. Not, do this when you feel like it. Do this, period. The desire will come on its own. But before we talk about the system itself, we have to understand something about the nature of morning, about why the morning hours carry disproportionately great importance. The Stoics, the philosophical school that gave the world Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, gave morning a special place in their practice. Not by accident, and not for aesthetic reasons. They did it because they understood precisely how the human mind works. In Letters to Lucilius, Seneca wrote, "Claim yourself for yourself. Gather and preserve the time that until now has been taken from you or stolen from you." He meant the morning hours, before the day fills up with other people's demands, obligations, and reactions to circumstances. It is the only time when you belong entirely to yourself. Marcus Aurelius began every morning by writing to himself, the very texts that came down to us as meditations, not for the public, for himself. As a daily tuning of the instrument before work, he asked himself questions. Who do I want to be today? What principles do I want to embody? What difficult things will happen today, and how do I want to respond to them? This is not positive thinking and not visualization of success. This is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of difficulties. A Stoic tool for preparing the mind. Live through the worst in advance, in the calm of morning. And when it arrives, you will meet it like something familiar, not like a shock. Neurobiology explains why morning matters so much through the concept of ego depletion, the psychological resource of self-control, which declines throughout the day. In the morning, that resource is full. Every decision, every act of will, every resistance to impulse uses it up. By evening, the reserve is minimal. That is exactly why people eat too much at night, say too much, and put off what they planned to do. That means this: everything you want to do through effort should be done in the morning, not because morning is magical, but because the resource has not yet been spent. You are stronger in the morning, not physically, but in your ability to overcome resistance. That is exactly why samurai rose before dawn. That is exactly why monks began their practice with the first rays of light. That is exactly why Marcus Aurelius wrote his reflections in the morning. They intuitively understood what science formulated much later. Now, to the system. To the 4 principles that turn morning from a field of defeat into a field of victory. The first principle is called Ichidan Kansei, completion of the first step. In the Japanese philosophy of martial arts, this meant the following. Any action either exists or does not exist, depending on whether the first step was taken. Not the first strike, not the first technique. Literally, the first movement of the body toward action. Masters of swordsmanship understood that the decision to attack is not made in the moment of the attack. It is made in the moment the body begins to move. That moment is critical. Before it, doubt, hesitation, and retreat are still possible. After it, the action has already begun, and the inner logic of the body carries you forward. Applied to morning, this means one thing. Everything is decided in the first movement. Not in the first hour, not in the first minute, in the first physical movement of the body, from horizontal to vertical. That moment, Ichidan Kansei, is the only point at which a real choice is made. Epictetus described this through the concept of prohairesis, free will, the capacity to choose your response to any circumstance. He said, The only thing fully in your power is the choice between following an impulse and overcoming it. The alarm ringing is an external circumstance, not in your power. Your response is fully in your power. It sounds simple. But Epictetus understood that fully in your power does not mean easy. It means possible. And that is exactly why he insisted, train prohairesis every day, in small things, so that you will be ready for great ones. Every morning is training in prohairesis, small, invisible, absolutely real. You are training your capacity to choose your response, or training its absence. There is no third option. The neurobiological mechanism of this process is called neural consolidation through repetition. Every time a neural pathway is activated, it is strengthened. The pathway, signal, immediate action, gets stronger every morning you get up without delay. The pathway, signal, negotiation with yourself, postponement, gets stronger every morning you hit the button. After 30 days, one of those pathways becomes significantly wider than the other. After 100, one of them becomes a highway. And that is exactly the choice you are making every morning, often without even realizing that you are making a choice at all. In practical terms, it looks like this. When the alarm goes off, do not make a decision. The decision was already made the night before. I am getting up. In the morning, there is only execution. Count to 5 if you need an anchor, or simply move, before the brain has formulated its first objection. Ichidan kansei, the first step, and then the body carries you on its own. The second principle is katati no chishiki, knowledge through form. This is one of the central ideas of Japanese aesthetic philosophy, rooted in 8th century Zen Buddhism. Its essence is this: form, that is, a concrete, repeatable, precise way of performing an action, is not a limitation. Form is liberation. When you have no form, every action requires a decision. When form exists, the action happens by itself, freeing the mind for more important things. The tea ceremony, Chanoyu, is the best-known example of this principle. Every movement is precisely defined. The angle of the bow, the way the cup is held, the sequence of actions. None of it is arbitrary. All of it is intentional structure. A master of tea ceremony does not think about the movements. They are present within them. That is exactly why the tea ceremony is meditation, not in spite of its structure, but because of it. Confucius described a similar principle through the concept of li, ritual. For him, li was not an external formality, but a way of embodying inner order in outward action. A person whose actions have form and order is a person whose mind has form and order. A person whose actions are chaotic is a person whose mind is chaotic. The outer and inner cannot be separated. Applied to the morning, this means create a form. A specific, unchanging sequence of 3 or 4 actions that happen in the same order every morning, without exceptions, without variations, without depending on mood. Not because order matters for its own sake, but because repeated form creates what the Japanese call ma, a space of presence, within which the day begins from order rather than chaos. Seneca wrote, "Recede in te ipse," withdraw into yourself. He meant the morning hours as a time of return to yourself before the day demands you for others. A morning ritual is the form of that return. Not meditation in the obligatory sense, not spiritual practice in the religious sense. Simply a few precise actions that tell the brain, now begins a day that belongs to me. And here, at this point in our conversation, I want to pause. You are listening to this, and something in what has been said has probably already resonated, has probably felt familiar from your own experience. Maybe you remembered one specific morning, or many mornings. That moment when the alarm rings, and you know perfectly well you need to get up, intend to get up, even want to get up. And yet, your hand still finds the button, again. and you begin the day with a small defeat already inside you. Not a loud one, a quiet one, but a real one. Maybe you have tried to change it, set the alarm for a different time, put the phone farther away, build morning rituals. And something worked, for a week, maybe two, and then slipped back into the old pattern. Write about that in the comments, specifically how it was for you, how long it lasted, what helped, and why it stopped helping. I read every comment, and I know for certain most of the people watching this right now have been through the same thing. It matters to say it out loud. Not out of shame, but because understanding that truly changes something is born from exactly these honest stories. The third principle is mugen no discipline. Discipline without limits. And this is the most paradoxical of the four principles. In Zen philosophy, there is the concept of mushin, no mind, a state in which action happens without inner commentary, without a struggle between desire and intention. A master of martial arts in mushin does not think about technique, they are the technique. A master of calligraphy in mushin does not think about the stroke, they are the stroke. Most people think discipline means constant effort, constant overcoming, endless war with yourself. And that is exactly why they grow tired of it before it has time to become part of their character. But discipline, in the understanding of the Japanese masters, is not effort. It is direction. Not something you do by force, something you become through practice. Epictetus described the path to this state through the image of an athlete. He said, "An athlete does not think about every movement during competition. The body knows, because years of training have made the right movement the only possible one." Discipline is the same. Through enough repetitions, the right action stops requiring choice. It simply happens. Applied to the morning, this means something very concrete. The first weeks are hard. That is normal. This is shu, the first stage of the Japanese learning model, following the rule through effort. The brain resists, the body wants warmth, the inner voice invents arguments. You do it anyway. Then it gets easier, not because the reluctance disappears, but because the neural pathway signal action has become wider than the pathway signal negotiation. This is ha, the second stage. You begin to understand the rule from the inside, not just obey it. And finally, there is a click. It happens for different people at different times, on day 30, 50, or 100. The alarm rings and the body rises on its own. No inner dialogue, no effort. It just happens. This is ri, the third stage, union. The person and the action have become one. Miyamoto Musashi described this transition in The Book of Five Rings in relation to swordsmanship. When you think about the sword, you are still learning. When you forget the sword, you are a master. Discipline you still think about is discipline you are still building. Discipline you have forgotten because it has become you is character. The fourth principle is ichi nichi issei, one day, one life. This is a philosophical idea that runs through Japanese culture at every level, from martial arts to tea ceremony, from ikebana to garden architecture. Its meaning is this: each day is a complete, finished unit, not a step towards something bigger, not preparation for the real life that will begin someday later. A full life, here and now, within these 24 hours. Samurai cultivated this understanding through meditation on death, shikisei, not as a dark ritual, but as a tool of presence. Each morning, the warrior reminded himself, "This day may be my last. What changes in the way I live it if I know that?" This is not fear of death. It is the opposite of it. Complete presence in life. When you understand finitude, each day gains the weight it lost in endless postponement until tomorrow. Marcus Aurelius returned to this thought again and again in Meditations. Loss is nothing but change. See things as they are, not as you wish them to be. He ruled an empire in an age of wars, epidemics, and political crises, and still began each morning by returning to something simple. Today. What can I do today? Not what I plan to do someday. In the Analects, Confucius described the ideal of a person who lives in accordance with their nature, not because they have reached enlightenment, but because each day, each morning, they choose alignment. Not grand alignment, small, daily, unglamorous alignment. Practically speaking, the principle of Ichi Nichi Ise means this: do not build your morning ritual for a result a year from now. Build it for today. For the sake of living today as the person you want to be, not as the person you hope to become someday. This removes the pressure of grand goals. You do not need to change your whole life. You need to live today. One day, one time. And tomorrow, again, one day, one time. That is exactly how the system works. Not through a heroic decision to change yourself. Through a repeated choice. Every morning, one time, without grandiosity, until those choices have assembled into a person. Now let us look at all 4 principles as a whole. Ichidan Kansei, the first step, eliminates the gap between intention and action. You do not wait for desire. You act before the brain has formed an objection. Katati no Chishiki, knowledge through form, creates the structure of the morning. 3 or 4 exact actions in one order without exceptions. Form frees the mind from the need to decide and opens a space of presence. Mugen no discipline, discipline without limits, describes the direction of the path, from effort to nature, from shu through ha to ri, from I do this to this is who I am. Ichi Nichi Ise, one day, one life, gives the right scale. Not grand goals for the year. One day, today, fully. These 4 principles do not contradict one another. They unfold in sequence, like the petals of a single flower. The first gives the start. The second gives the structure. The third gives the direction. The fourth gives the meaning. Zeno of Citium, who founded Stoicism after losing everything in a shipwreck, practiced a simple morning rule. Upon waking, the first thing he did was ask himself one question. What is in my power today? Not what will be hard, not what may go wrong. What is in my power, right now, in this first moment of the day? The answer is always the same. In your power is how you get up, whether you rise immediately or bargain with yourself. Whether you create the form of your morning or let chaos shape you. Whether you choose what is difficult first or postpone it until the moment when the resource has already been spent. That is the only thing fully in your power every morning. And that is exactly why it is everything. The samurai on his mat in the dark of a winter morning knew this. The monk in a Zen monastery waiting for the bell knew this. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the largest empire, who still began each day by writing to himself, knew this. They were not people without reluctance, without fatigue, without the temptation to stay in the warmth. They were people who understood this. Reluctance is not a signal to stop. It is simply a state that passes a few minutes after you get up. Always, without exceptions. You will never regret getting up. Not once in life has a person gotten up early and later thought, that was a mistake. But everyone who has hit the button knows that quiet feeling in the middle of the day, when you realize the morning is already lost. And along with it, something else. Something hard to name, but easy to feel. This is not drama. It is simply data about who you are today and data about who you can become if tomorrow morning you do it differently. One time, tomorrow morning. Ichidan Kansei, the first step. Everything else follows from it.